back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to do a quick stats update, a mid-year stats update, because I don't really talk about my reading stats that often, but when I did one at Christmas time, loads of you really enjoyed watching it, so I thought I'd just do a really quick one. I say quick, let's hope it's quick, and update you on how my reading is going so far this year. So, the first thing, and the question I always get asked, is how many books have you read this year? So far I am on 132, which I'm quite happy with. I must admit I am aiming for 200, but in my head secretly I'm going for like 250, so I'm definitely on track for that, and I think it is possible. And I have read a lot more longer books this year. Last year I read a lot of graphic novels. This year I've still been reading them, but I've been reading less. So I feel very happy with my reading as a whole at the moment, and I feel like it's gone really well. I've read just over 45,900 pages, I think 45,939, so that's pretty good going, and I'm really impressed with that figure. Every time I hear it, it's like, oh wow, okay, that's a lot. So that's good. And then out of that, I have read mostly science fiction and fantasy, as is probably easy to guess. About 52.7% of my reading was fantasy, which means about 24,200-ish pages. 24.5% was science fiction, which is just over 11,200 pages. And the rest has been other things, so like magical realism, non-fiction, contemporary, literary fiction, etc. Out of the things I have been reading, most of the time I tend to be reading either audio or paperbacks. So paperbacks has been about a quarter of my reading, and audio has been just under half, which is quite impressive. And then 10% has been graphic stuff because of the Getting Graphic readathons that Eleanor and I have been doing. I actually don't feel like I've read a lot of graphic things, but then I think back to those 2 days and I realise I read so much on those 2 days that it makes sense that there's 10% of it as graphic stuff. 9% is like ARC copies sent from publishers. Out of all the books I have read, most of them are novels. About 3/4 of what I read on a normal daily basis are novels, and then 10% are graphic, as I say, and 5% novellas, 5% novelettes, so all short fiction things, make up the rest. Out of my physical books versus my digital books, which I count either ebooks and audiobooks both as digital. At the moment I am leading with my physical reading, which I'm quite happy about. I've read 53% physical books and 47% audio and digital, which is quite good. I've got a fairly even split and I'm pretty happy with that. My ratio of female to male authors is looking fairly good this year. So far I have been reading predominantly women, and it's been about 64% women to 33% men, which I'm really happy with. I feel like last year it was about a 50-50 split, and the year before that it was heavily male. So far I'm leaning more towards the females this year, which is making me really happy, and I've really enjoyed a lot of them. And then also talking about the books that I have recently read, most of them are adult books, so 79, basically 80% of my reading is adult books. 16% is YA, and then the rest is middle grade or kids fiction, things like Harry Potter and The Amber Spyglass and stuff like that. Most of the time I tend to read series, so I've got 72% of my reading is either starting or ongoing series, sometimes finishing them, although that's not that often. And then occasionally I will dip into just a standalone, and that's about the remainder of my reading. So far on my series, I have actually caught up with 5 series, so I've read the most recent book in that series, and I have finished 4 series, which I'm really happy with. I'm definitely looking to finish a few more before the end of the year, and there are books that I could definitely use to finish more, because I have some series where I literally just have one book to read and I would finish it, I just haven't got to them. So I'm hoping in the second half of the year I can bump up the series reading and completing them. That would be good. One of the other questions that I got was, where do I buy my books from? And I have been tracking this, so I can tell you some stats for that too. And so far it looks like predominantly I tend to buy my books from Audible and Amazon, which I know is not great, but it's just convenient. They're relatively good prices compared to some bookshops. I also live in a town which only has a Waterstones, and even the town where I work only has a Waterstones, so there's not that many bookshops around to go and buy books from, sadly, But I do, when I go up to London, buy from Forbidden Planet and various other small independent bookshops that are kind of around the same area in London. And at the moment I've actually been sent about 15% of my books from publishers and authors, so I'm not buying those books at all, they're just sort of turning up on the doorstep. And then I do buy about 10% from secondhand sellers, either online or just secondhand from friends, or they might give them to me, whatever it is, they're secondhand used books. And then finally I thought I would share with you guys kind of what genres I've been picking up. You know what I've already read, but you don't necessarily know what I've been buying, unless you've watched all my hauls, in which case you do. But anyway, this year I have been buying kind of in line with what I've been reading, so that makes sense. 39% of what I bought I would class as a fantasy book, 30% would be science fiction, so they're fairly even with what I've been reading. 8%, which is the next highest, is literary stuff. 3% is non-fiction. That is it for my mini stats update. I would love to hear in the comments below how you guys have been doing so far for the year. Are you on track with reading goals? Are you excited about how the year's going? Are you hoping the second half is going to be better? Of course I hope it's going to be better for me as well, but I can't really complain about the first half. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.